Okay, Tuesday, July 7th, and we are focusing on a potentially widespread, or the potential for a widespread severe weather event now. Not as much today, but tomorrow, Wednesday. It would come in two waves, and I'm going to show you that in just a little bit here in this weather briefing. First wave is going to be tomorrow morning, and that mostly is going to affect western sections of Minnesota, so we're talking kind of right in this area here. As a squall line, the way it appears, is going to move east across much of western and northern Minnesota, and then eventually into the lakes area of Brainerd, maybe even the Twin Cities metro, and then into northern Minnesota during the late morning hours. And then I'm expecting a redevelopment of thunderstorms during the late afternoon and evening hours right in this area. And these storms could really pack a punch. And I would expect them to develop somewhere in between the neighborhood of 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. tomorrow afternoon and evening. And again, these storms need to be watched, and we need to keep a close eye to the sky because they are going to mean business as they move east across the heart of Minnesota today. Now, I'd mentioned kind of just a little bit surprised that we didn't have more in the way of thunderstorm activity today, but most of the activity erupted over southeastern Minnesota, the southeastern corner of Minnesota, and then on into Wisconsin. And yes, some severe thunderstorm warnings were issued for those areas, and you can see those storms blowing up during the early afternoon hours and creating some havoc down there. And we are just left with late afternoon cumulus clouds now over much of Minnesota. Don't be surprised if these bubble up into a quick little shower this evening, but really I'm not expecting the main event to happen until late tonight. We're talking after midnight over western and northwestern Minnesota and the eastern Dakotas as storms blow up over North Dakota and South Dakota and move east during the overnight hours. All right, this is the Namm computer model guidance, and what we're looking at right now is the turning winds now in our atmosphere, because winds that are turning in our atmosphere are key to severe weather. You not only want winds turning, but you also want them increasing in speed as you go up in the atmosphere. Now, this is the lower layers of our atmosphere for tomorrow evening, and look at the strong winds across much of Minnesota coming up from the south at about 3,000 to 5,000 feet in our atmosphere. Now, as we go up into the atmosphere, we go up to about 20,000 feet in our atmosphere, and the winds now start turning into a more west-southwesterly direction, and they are still strong. And then when we get up to the jet stream level, look at this. We have a jet streak that's coming out of Montana and into North Dakota, and then eventually that jet streak is going to be moving east into northern Minnesota during the evening and overnight hours. So we are going to have a turning of winds in our atmosphere, and that is the reason why I'm expecting some severe weather. It certainly could be in the form of strong winds or hail, but there is also going to be a tornado threat across the heart of Minnesota as we go through the late afternoon and evening hours tomorrow. So a good reason to keep an eye to the sky. All right, here's future radar. Here are those thunderstorms that are still expected to be over portions of Wisconsin and eastern Iowa later this evening. And then look at the storms firing over North Dakota. This is going to be a fairly significant severe weather event tonight over North Dakota and northern South Dakota. Those storms move east as a squall line across eastern North Dakota, northeastern South Dakota, then eventually into northwestern Minnesota by early tomorrow morning, and perhaps even into the Twin Cities metro and Duluth metro areas by late in the morning. But they should be losing their steam as we go into the more stable hours of late morning and early afternoon. And then we keep our eyes on what happens right around 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening tomorrow. Look at the explosion of thunderstorms across the heart of Minnesota. Draw a line from Duluth back southwest to St. Cloud, and then continuing southwest to about Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That looks like the initiation point for strong to severe thunderstorms late tomorrow afternoon, and then of course they quickly push east into southern and eastern Minnesota and northwestern Wisconsin. Again, that's one of the reasons why I'm concerned about strong straight line winds. as we get into the early evening hours, even in the Twin Cities metro. And yes, as these storms fire, especially late in the afternoon during initiation time period, I do expect that we may experience a tornado warning or two across Minnesota. We'll have to keep a close eye on that. Look at the energy in the lower layers of our atmosphere now. This is as we get into later today, and no doubt, look at the energy in southern North Dakota, northern South Dakota. That's why they're expecting a severe weather event over there as we get into later today. But then, as we go through the overnight hours, and then especially into tomorrow afternoon, look at the absurd CAPE values in southwestern and central Minnesota, including the Twin Cities. We're talking about CAPE values in excess of 4,000 JKGs. In a long story short, that's just a ton of energy in the lower layers of our atmosphere that the cold front will have to work with as it pushes east across Minnesota tomorrow evening. Hence the reason why I'm expecting a fairly widespread severe weather outbreak across much of Minnesota and then into northwestern Wisconsin as we get into tomorrow evening. So please keep an eye to the sky. Of course, we'll be updating you quite a bit here on Bring Me the News and Novak Weather on what is transpiring. We may even go live if the conditions warrant it as we get into late afternoon tomorrow and early evening. But please, again, keep an eye to the sky because severe weather is certainly possible tomorrow, later tonight in western and northwestern Minnesota, and then tomorrow across much of Minnesota. Have a great evening.